I was not alone at home. That night, I was sure I was alone at home. At least, that's what I believed. My parents had gone to attend a wedding in another city, and my younger brother was staying at a friend's house. The house felt unusually quiet after they left, no TV sounds, no footsteps, not even the hum of conversation. Just silence, thick and uncomfortable. I locked the main door, checked the windows, and turned on a few lights. The house was old, the kind where shadows seemed to cling to the corners longer than they should. I told myself I was being silly. After all, I had stayed alone before. Around 10:30 p.m., I went to my room and lay on the bed, scrolling through my phone. The ceiling fan creaked softly above me. Every now and then, I heard the wooden floor make a faint cracking sound. Normal, I thought. Old houses settle at night. Then I heard it. A soft sound, like someone shifting their weight. I froze. The sound didn't come from outside. It came from inside the house. Probably the wind, I whispered, though the windows were closed. I turned up the volume on my phone, trying to distract myself. Minutes passed. My heartbeat slowly returned to normal. Then the sound came again. This time, it was clearer. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Barefoot. They were coming from the hallway. I sat up in bed, my throat dry. I listened carefully, barely breathing. The footsteps stopped right outside my room. I stared at the door. Nothing moved. After what felt like forever, I laughed nervously at myself. Get a grip, I said out loud. You're alone. I stood up and opened the door. The hallway was empty. Every door was closed. The lights were exactly how I had left them. Still, the air felt wrong. Heavy. Cold. I locked my bedroom door and went back to bed, pulling the blanket up to my chin like a child. At midnight, I woke up suddenly. Something was wrong. The room was darker than before. The fan had stopped. The air was silent, too silent. Then I heard breathing. Not mine. It was slow and deep, coming from inside the room. I sat up so fast my head spun. The sound came from the corner near the wardrobe. Who's there? I asked, my voice shaking. The breathing stopped. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam slowly moved across the room, the desk, the window, and finally the wardrobe. The wardrobe door was slightly open. I was sure I had closed it. My heart pounded as I whispered, "This isn't funny." The door began to open wider. By itself. I screamed and ran to the door, trying to unlock it, but it wouldn't open. Then I heard a voice. Soft, dry, whispering. "You finally noticed." I turned around. There was a shape standing behind me. Tall, thin, too dark to see clearly. Its head tilted slowly, unnaturally, as if it was studying me. "You were never alone," it whispered. The lights flickered on, and suddenly, I was alone again. No shadow, no sound, no open wardrobe, just me, shaking on the floor. The door unlocked easily. The next morning, my parents came home early. I told them everything, my voice trembling. They looked at each other silently. Then my mother said something that made my blood run cold. "We forgot to tell you, this house has always had someone else living in it." That night, as I lay in bed, exhausted but awake, my phone buzzed with a notification. A voice recording, from my phone, recorded at 12:17 a.m. I pressed play. All I heard was my own voice whispering, "I am not alone at home." I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that whisper again. "You were never alone." Morning light eventually crept through the curtains, but it didn't bring relief. The house felt different now. As if it knew I was awake. As if it was watching me move from room to room. I replayed the voice recording again and again. It was my voice, but I didn't remember recording it. The timestamp said 12:17 a.m. At that exact time, I remembered standing frozen in my room, staring at something that should not exist. My mother told me the house was old. That was all she said. When I asked her what she meant by someone else's lives here, she avoided my eyes and told me to get ready for college. My father remained silent, his jaw tight, his knuckles white around his cup of tea. That silence terrified me more than the shadow. By evening, my parents left again, just for a few hours, they said. I begged them to stay, but they thought I was just shaken by imagination. As the front door closed, the house exhaled. That's the only way I can describe it. The air grew colder. The lights dimmed slightly. The walls creaked as if something inside them was stretching. I locked myself in my room. At exactly 12 a.m., the knocking began. Not on the door, from inside the walls. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. I covered my ears, but the sound wasn't traveling through air, it was inside my head. Knock, knock, knock. The wardrobe door rattled violently. I screamed and threw myself onto the bed. My phone buzzed again. Another recording. I didn't touch the phone. It started playing by itself. A child's voice whispered, "Why do you hide? This is my room." My blood turned to ice. The lights went out. In the darkness, I heard footsteps again, but this time, they weren't walking. They were circling my bed. I felt the mattress sink slightly, as if someone sat down beside me. The weight was real, heavy, cold. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. A breath brushed against my ear. "You took my place," the voice said. Memories that weren't mine flooded my mind. A boy, locked inside this house, ignored, starving, dying alone in the dark. His anger soaked into the walls. The wardrobe burst open. A figure crawled out, not walking, not standing, but dragging itself across the floor, its limbs bent the wrong way. Its face looked like mine, but empty, hollow. It raised its head and smiled. "Now you stay," it said. Suddenly, the house shook violently. Doors slammed, windows cracked. I felt myself being pulled, down into the floor, into the walls, into the house itself. I screamed my parents' names. The lights flashed on. I was lying alone in my room. No damage, no figure, no noise, but something was wrong. My reflection in the mirror moved a second too late. I raised my hand. The reflection smiled before I did. Behind me, written on the wall in deep scratches, were the words, "You belong here." My phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown contact. "Don't leave. I get lonely when you're gone." And from the hallway, I heard my own voice calling my name. I did not answer the voice calling my name from the hallway. I stayed completely still on my bed, staring at the wall where the words were carved, feeling as if the house itself was breathing with me. Each inhale made the walls tighten, and each exhale released a low groan that traveled through the floor into my bones. I realized then that the house was not just a place anymore, it was aware of me. It knew my fear, my thoughts, my memories, and it was slowly wrapping itself around all of them. I gathered the courage to stand and looked into the mirror again. This time, the reflection copied me perfectly, but the eyes were wrong. They were too dark, too deep, as if something behind the glass was looking out instead of reflecting in. I whispered my own name, just to hear something human, but the reflection whispered it back before my lips moved. That was the moment I understood the truth. I was no longer alone inside my own body. The hallway light flickered as I stepped outside my room. Every step felt heavier, as if the floor was gently pulling me down, trying to keep me close. Family photos lined the walls, but the faces inside them had changed. My parents' eyes were scratched out, and in every frame where I should have been, there was a shadow standing slightly behind me, its hand resting on my shoulder. I felt a sudden pressure there, cold fingers pressing into my skin, and I nearly collapsed from the shock. I ran to the front door, desperate to escape, but the lock would not turn. The handle felt warm, almost alive, pulsing beneath my palm. From behind me, I heard slow clapping, each sound echoing unnaturally loud through the house. A voice spoke from everywhere at once, no longer pretending to be gentle, telling me that the door had not opened for anyone in a very long time and that the house only lets one soul leave when another agrees to stay. The temperature dropped so suddenly that my breath turned white. Shadows began peeling away from the walls, stretching across the floor like spilled ink. They gathered in the center of the living room, twisting and folding into a familiar shape. The boy I had seen before stood there now, his form clearer, his face hollow with endless hunger. He told me he had died waiting for someone to notice him, that his parents had locked him away to hide their shame, and that the house had listened to his screams until it learned how to scream back. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The boy moved closer without walking, gliding as if the floor carried him willingly. He said the house needed a voice, a heart, a mind, and that I had given it all three the moment I felt afraid. I felt my memories slipping, moments of my life fading like old photographs, and in their place came memories of darkness, of watching families move in and out, of never being able to leave. The walls began to close in, bending inward like ribs around a heart. I felt myself being pressed into the house, my thoughts spreading into the cracks, my breath filling its empty rooms. For a moment, I saw myself from above, standing still, eyes blank, smiling softly as if finally at peace. I understood then that the house did not kill people. It kept them. Morning came quietly. My parents returned to find me sitting at the dining table, calm, silent, and smiling. I told them I was fine, that I had slept well, that I was never afraid. They believed me, because the house wanted them to. As they walked away, I felt the walls relax, satisfied. That night, when the lights were turned off and the house settled into its familiar silence, I whispered into the darkness, feeling every corner respond to my voice. Someone new was sleeping in my room, unaware, breathing softly. I smiled, listening carefully. They believed they were alone at home. Just like I once did.